And what is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of We Lift Big. So we are well into a month of quarantine. And speaking for myself, I feel as though I've really started to find a good flow to my days. I've picked up some new habits, like first thing when I wake up in the morning, I actually do about 5 to 10 minutes of Tai Chi yoga flow. And it's been awesome. And just to make sure that I'm still getting my steps in, I take about 2 to 3 walks around my block every single day. And what's really cool about doing that is not only am I getting some good sunshine, but I'm becoming acquainted with some of my neighbors. And it's funny because growing up in the country my whole life, you don't really get to know your neighbors. They are few and far in between. And even in college and living in apartments, I never really had much of a relationship with any of my neighbors. I never really saw any of them that much, let alone had any sort of interaction with them. And in terms of connecting with my neighbors right now, it's just simply me saying hi and exchanging for a few minutes from afar. I find it funny because in the moment I feel myself like physically getting shy. And so if any of my neighbors are listening to this right now, if I come across as a little shy or anxious on my walks, it's just because I've never really talked with my neighbors before. That's pretty funny. In all 26 years of my life. Anyhow, so to change the subject, I have been listening and reading as I often do. And I've been hearing a lot of different predictions about how certain industries are going to see some permanent changes from this quarantine, how social gatherings are going to be different, people's anxieties about re-entering into the world, and I wanted to give my own address on this, which is really just to give some perspective if you're someone who is anxious or nervous about going back into the world and re-entering work and getting outside more as the ban starts to get lifted. And if you are nervous, it's okay. It is completely okay to feel the way that you do. And the more that we set ourselves up through this transition, as I'm going to dive into in a little bit, is going to make a huge difference. And because I care about you all and I care about my own transition back into the real world, that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about this today. So, 2 things that I want you to take away from today's podcast, and 2 things that I think could be the 2 most important things that we could be focusing on right now. And so number 1, really taking time to get to know ourselves. Now is a beautiful time to really get to know yourself. And just to speak from experience, guys, I have been learning so much about myself. I've been getting in touch with my creative spirit again in ways that I haven't experienced since I was younger. And I'm tapping back into my piano, which I played piano for 14 years, guys. And then I didn't touch a keyboard for 7. And so it's kind of there. It's kind of muscle memory, but oh man, it's been a while. But it's been really awesome at the same time, because anything that's muscle memory is just your body, at least this is my experience, like your body really starts to connect with it and it feels familiar. And I don't know, that excites me, like when something feels new again, but it also feels familiar at the same time. And let me just add, if anyone like myself has had some anxiety about not having access to heavier weights or certain pieces of exercise equipment during this time, and you're nervous that you have lost muscle mass or lost strength, even if that is the case, as we start to get back into our routines carefully, I'll say, because we don't just want to jump into it. It's been a little bit, but as you start to get into it again, your body is going to remember how it lifted. You're going to come back faster, and you're going to come back stronger as you start to hit the gym again and you start to get your similar routines back into swing. And so back to my point, getting back in touch with nature. I've been going on a lot of hikes. There's a place by my house that I've been sneaking into, quote unquote. I don't know if I should say more, but that's been really beautiful. And just tapping back into my youthful creativity. And I didn't even realize that I was depriving myself of exploring my old creative avenues just because I was so consumed with training. And don't get me wrong, I love training, and training does allow me to be creative. But I was giving myself no room to breathe. And maybe you feel that way about your job. And maybe this is a time for you as well, where you just realize how much you were allowing your work to take over your life. I want to say it was the first week that I really kind of realized, like, oh my gosh, I didn't remember that there was so much time in a day. And I laugh at it, but it's just this kind of crazy. My personality, I'm such a workaholic, and I had just allowed myself to be so consumed with work for the past year and a half, 2 years. And this quarantine has really made me realize that. And so now that I've really recognized that, and I remember what it feels like to let myself be a little more relaxed, I know that when I go back to everything, that I'm going to be able to create so much more maintainable work and just allow myself more time to breathe. And that's something that I really want to prioritize, because I know if I flooded myself again, if I've flooded myself in the past, it's something I can totally do again. And I have to say that's one of the biggest things I've learned, is just really getting in touch with myself. And maybe you feel this way too. Like when there's a internal struggle or something that I know I need to confront, work also provides a distraction. And I know that bit me in the ass a bit last year. This is probably the first time, even then, even as I kind of adapted and moved on and grew from everything from last year, I realized just again, I allowed myself to really just be engulfed with what I do. This break has really allowed me to finally be okay with just breathing and just being in space and allowing my creative juices to flow and not putting so much pressure on myself to do and do and do. And so, maybe you feel the same way. And again, coming back, I just want to make sure that when I do come back this time, that I achieve a much better balance in my life between work and between allowing myself to be with myself and tackle things that I know I need to tackle and I can't distract myself from, because I want to grow always as a human. And jumping back a little bit into the second point that I was going to make, because I realized I didn't swing back yet. Routines. So routines are so important right now. And so now that maybe you've been learning a lot about yourself like I have. And one of the greatest things that you can do for yourself with your newfound knowledge is to create habits and routines and practices that complement and that promote everything that you are learning about yourself. And so just to speak from my own experience again, since I'm really learning to get back in touch with my creative spirit and allowing myself to take my time and breathe and just allow myself more freedom from just wanting to work all the time. I'm developing in my own life the routines. And so again, just to mention the Tai Chi and yoga, those things just allowing me to get centered in the mornings and centered in the evenings. And again, these are all things that we can take back into the world with us. And so just imagine the person that you will continue to grow and become when you start to incorporate these new things into your life. It's awesome. Finally, one thing that I want to say, if you truly are nervous, and again, that is okay. It is okay to be nervous about going out into the world again. We've found a way to work through this. We're going to continue to find a way to work through the world as things start to get back to normal. And it's just all about being aware, being vigilant, being proactive, and committing to, again, practices that are going to help ease your mind, really understand where your fear comes from, and to just keep moving forward. That's all we need to do, is just keep moving forward. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of those things. And just thank you guys all for being with me. Let me know your thoughts, what practices you are implementing in your life, what you are learning about yourself, and let's just stay in it. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.